Back in the day...
Is this going to take long?
No.
Bastard.
We still have to smoke cigarettes. Back in the day when the earth was young, there were accountants. But that was before we had money. So they were vampires. And these vampire accountants would constantly take census of all living creatures. But there were no living creatures, because they ate them all. So finally, God made man out of clay, because it was the one thing that vampires could not stomach down. It's sort of like ramen noodles, you know, the instant kind. I mean, unless you're a college student, but those weren't put into production kind of, you know, like a couple of years later, so it's even worse. But imagine if you could clay instant noodles, even less appetizing and much more watery. And it's water-based anyway, so it always dissolves into a powder, like if you had gum in your mouth for too long. Does that ever happen to you guys? You get gum in your mouth, and you chew it for like 4 hours, and it just dissolves into its base components, which is like shitty rubber and saliva, because that's all that's left. You've sucked all the juices out, much like these vampires, which I'm trying to get back to. So anyway, the vampires saw that men were made out of clay, and so they decided they had to come up with their own model to compete with the man, because they have to stay competitive, and those were trolls. Now, if you've ever met a troll at a party, you realize they seem really cool at first, but before long, all they're doing are eating your nachos and picking the lint out of their toes on your bed, and it piles up into a big lint mattress. And you're always thinking, man, maybe the troll will start sleeping on the lint mattress, but it never actually happens. They just stay on your bed. And before long, you've got all these tiny little troll babies. You're not sure how, because you don't remember actually sleeping with the troll. But it's a troll, so it probably did something nasty when you weren't looking. And so the troll people and the babies and the vampires and the clay men, eventually they started fighting because they couldn't remember which was which, and nothing's more irritating than racism. And it just drives people nuts. And so there were all these factions. There was the Troll Kingdom and the men and the vampires, and they couldn't remember the original factions. And so then, before you know it, the man-clay people were working with the vampires, and the vampires were like, hey, maybe you should start using blood instead of clay. It'll help you run faster. But that was just so that they could secure another food source. And they didn't realize they could just feed off of cattle, because they're vampires and they're accountants. They're not farmers. And that led to World War Zero, which led in the first explosion. And that is our public service announcement. You're very welcome. That's all you need to know for this week.